everyone to the first Davidson Commissioner Candidate Forum in 2017, brought to you by Save Davidson, similar to our mayoral forum last Thursday. I'm Stephanie Amadio. I'm a volunteer with the Save Davidson group. Our mission is to ensure fairness, ethics, and transparency in official Town of Davidson decision-making through citizen education, empowerment, and participation, which is why Save Davidson wanted to host this event. These events are made possible from gifts to Save Davidson, so if you would like to donate, please text SAVDAV to 52046. We're $218 away from a $2,500 match that an anonymous donor had pledged. So thank you for that. Also want to thank Yosemite Baptist Church for sharing their lovely sanctuary with our Davidson community tonight, for especially given the importance of the event for our local elections, and a special appreciation to Tracy and Marvin Brandon at the church. They handled all the important details, which was wonderful for us tonight, and with regards to the sound and the tables, etc. So thank you very much. Most of us attending tonight share the bond of loving this wonderful town of Davidson, including we have 13 commissioner candidates, but tonight we only have 12 that are here. But we are grateful for your willingness to serve the community and to participate in tonight's forum, so thank you very much to each of you. Moderating for the event tonight is Andrew Jean of Davidson. He has been a resident of the town of Davidson for 6 years. He's an associate professor of political science at the college. He's been married to Shannon, and they have 2 boys, 8 and 5, Charlie and Sam, and at Davidson Elementary School. So thank you to Andrew, and he's going to make a few opening remarks about the format for tonight, as well as some rules and regulations for us to follow tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thanks to everyone for being here, to all of our candidates and to everyone in the audience. Just a couple of quick notes on the format for tonight. I have the secret questions here. Because of the number of people, we needed to come up with a format that seemed to work well in the time that we had allotted. And so what we've come up with is we are going to draw a single question, and we're going to ask that single question to everyone at a particular table. Then we're going to move down to the next table, ask another question of the next table, and a third question of the third table. And we're going to make another round of questions. So we're going to get through 2 rounds of questions. Before I ask the first question of each table, I'll take a moment to introduce each of the candidates and read the bios that they've provided for us today. After the 2 rounds of randomly drawn questions, we will have a brief 3 to 4 question lightning round, where candidates will have no opportunity to elaborate at all on their questions, but we promise to ask them very dignified and respectful questions. After the quick quick response questions, we've reserved about 1 or 2 minutes for each candidate to give a closing statement. This is also an opportunity for the candidates to answer any of the questions, or at least provide some insight into any of the questions that they weren't able to answer or that were asked of other tables. So if you've got a couple of things you want to say about a question you were not asked directly, make a couple of notes, and you can use some of your closing statement time to address some of those issues. Ellen Donaldson is going to be rigidly imposing time restraints. So don't run afoul of the orange flag. And I'll do my best to rein you in if you ignore her and keep talking. The audience is obviously an important part of how this event is supposed to go, but we ask that members of the audience please take a second to make sure that your cell phones are silenced or off. We also ask that you don't register any sort of overt verbal responses to any of the answers you hear, so no cheering, no jeering, no laughing, unless something is particularly funny. Then you can laugh. You're supposed to have an opportunity to laugh. Get it out while you can. And I think that's it in terms of the format. Yes? So the first thing I'm going to do is start with table 1. So this is Rodney Graham, George Berger, Jane Campbell, and Matt Fort in order from your left to right. I'm going to take a second to read the brief bios of each of these candidates, and then I'll draw the first question and allow them to provide their responses. Okay? So Rodney Graham thanks us all for allowing him to attend the evening's forum. He's lived in Davidson since 2005 with his wife and 2 children. He has a record of service of over 12 years in the community, from being on the town board since 2011 to being the past president of the Davidson Lands Conservancy and the owner of a small business that was just named the outstanding single-family builder in the United States by the United States Green Building Council. Davidson has made great progress in achieving its many core values these past 6 years, and Rodney is seeking re-election to work with his with the staff of the town of Davidson and the citizens to continue moving forward in a positive direction. So, thanks, Rodney. George Barger is a resident of the McConnell neighborhood and has lived in Davidson since 2008 with his wife and daughter. He's a community planner by training and works for the Cabarrus Health Alliance as a regional coordinator focusing on safe routes to school programming. Berger served on the Davidson Planning Board from 2009 through 2016 and presently is a member of the town's Livability Board. He was a member of the Comprehensive Plans Growth Management Study Group and has been a past volunteer with the Davidson Farmers Market. As the town commissioner, Mr. Berger will focus most closely on issues related to land use and transportation and on ensuring that Davidson is able to make decisions about issues impacting us all with more thorough information so we can ensure that the future quality of life in Davidson reflects the values stated in the comprehensive plan, that Davidson, quote, will continue to be a creative, safe, scholarly, and healthy community that enjoys high-quality public services and unique cultural and natural assets, unquote. Third is Jane Campbell. Jane is a 1987 graduate of Davidson College and a retired U.S. Navy captain. She served for more than a quarter century in a variety of assignments around the globe. She served on ships and ashore in the U.S. and overseas. Her duty stations included, but were not limited to, Norfolk, Pearl Harbor, the Pentagon, the National Security Council staff at the White House, Bahrain, and Kabul, Afghanistan. She earned a master's degree in national security strategy at the National War College in 2011. Jane retired in 2015 after serving as the Director of Public Affairs for the U.S. Fleet Forces Command in Norfolk, Virginia. Since returning to Davidson, she and her spouse have become actively involved in church, college, and community nonprofits. And last but not least is Matt Fort. Matthew, his wife, and 3 children have spent the last 6 years living in Davidson. They love to take walks on the Davidson College campus, ride bikes on the Greenway, attend concerts on the Green, and shop at Farmers Market on Saturdays. Currently, he is a Senior Director of Finance with Newell Brands and has held various positions over the course of his 14-year career with them. Matthew, a CPA, attended Lemoyne College. My mom went to Lemoyne College. and graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Accounting and a minor in Economics. During his time at Lemoyne, Matthew was an academic All-American swimmer and treasurer of the Accounting Society. Currently, Matthew sits on the board of the River Run Property Owners Association as the committee chair for government affairs. Welcome, Matt, and welcome to all the other candidates. Okay, so question number 1 for the first table. Several community leaders have said that the Board of Commissioners is best operated as a united front. What are your thoughts about the optimal operating model for the board and the mayor?
Are we going in order?
Sure.
Okay. Should I pick this up, or
Yes, you
everybody
should.
in here?
You should pick that up.
First off, I want to thank everybody for your interest and for attending the forum. One thing that I think the current town board has succeeded in is getting people to show up at our meetings and be interested in town affairs, so we've reached that core goal. And also to anybody who's listening at home, hopefully you can hear, and thank you for your interest and participation as well. I have always said, you don't quote me on this, but you don't want 5 people all like me on the town board. I think the composition that we have now is a lot of diversity in thought diversity and what we prioritize and what we consider to be important. And I think it ought to continue that way. So it's great that we have a number of people running, and I think inevitably we'll end up with the composition of the board, which is as it should be. Some people have strength and interest in one area, and others have it in another area. We certainly don't want a monolithic front on the town board, because that does not represent our community, and I don't think that's what we have now.
As Rodney said, thank you everybody. Thank you everybody for being here tonight, and everybody who might be listening at home or watching online if people are live streaming it. I would also like to echo the comment that Rodney made about the fact that we really don't need to have everybody voting in lockstep. There's not really a whole lot of need for that, and realistically, we're in the position where we do have a lot of different people and their ideas who live in Davidson. That's one of the most important things about Davidson. And frankly, when things are being decided before meetings, it doesn't really allow for a whole lot of transparency. And one of the things that we really, I think, need to get back to in Davidson is having a lot more openness in our planning processes for sure, but also in a lot of the decisions that we're making on behalf of town residents. So, thank you.
You guys have your own mics, come on.
Good evening, and again, thank everybody for being here tonight. Let me go even one step further. For those of you who have gone online or tried to search through town records, I think too many times in the past, this effort to show a united front has resulted in 5-0 votes when a precursor vote may have been 3-2. And then in order to show this united front, you have had a board vote unanimously to support a major issue. I think we're at a time when we can't do that anymore, that you expect your elected official to state why they voted in a certain way and not change that and not show that there is a 5-0 vote on an issue where people have had substantive differences. So I suggest that if you've looked up something and you found a 5-0 vote on something that you may have found contentious, go back, look at the vote prior to that. And so for me, I will vote in the way that I believe that you need to, and I will explain my vote beforehand and afterwards.
I agree with most everybody up here. I think that we need a diverse group of thinkers on the town board, people that look at things in a very different way. If we have everybody thinking and looking the same way, that does not represent the town of Davidson. I think we pride ourselves on our diversity and our diverse thoughts. I also think that people should reserve the right to change their minds. However, if you are going into a vote and you have a preconceived notion of something, and then after listening to the people, you decide to change your mind, I think that that's a positive thing. So I think changing your mind is not necessarily something that's a negative. It could be something that's a positive if you're listening to the people and are influenced by the majority. So I think that we should have a 3-2 vote almost every time. I think that there's going to be times where maybe there is a 5-0 vote, but that's going to be the exception and not the rule.
Okay, thank you all. The next question is for table 2, but I'm going to take a second to introduce everybody real fast before I ask it. So the next person on the list is David Sitton. David is a lifelong resident of the area, having grown up ETJ.
Yeah, an ETJ.
Okay, in the ETJ. He and his wife Tammy are the proud new parents of 2 boys, 19 months and 6 weeks old, respectively. David is the co-founder and president of CLN Worldwide, an international logistics firm with its head office in Charlotte. David's participation in this process stems from early involvement and concerns related to the rural area plan and subsequently to the proposed Beatty Street development. Having spent much of the last year working with area residents and town officials on these and similar issues, there seems to be little representation for Davidson as a small college town. David has offered to serve in that effort. Next is Stacy Anderson. Stacy and her family have lived in Davidson for 22 years and were the first on Grayton Lane. She brings over 30 years of financial services and consulting experience, supported by degrees in accounting and finance, to the town board. Community involvement and public service are one of her passions. She currently serves on the Arts and Science Council Board of Directors and has held volunteer leadership positions in the Huff PTSA, United Way of Mooresville Lake Norman, Mental Health Association of the Central Carolinas, and Davidson Elementary School Leadership Team. She's also the only candidate to have graduated from the Leadership Lake Norman program sponsored by the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce, strengthening her ties with Huntersville and Cornelius. Stacy thinks that the top issues facing Davidson fall into 3 categories. First, economic development, fiscal responsibility and sustainability. 2, public safety and health. And 3, transportation. As a commissioner for the past 3.5 years, she understands how local government works and what types of issues fall within Davidson's jurisdictional responsibilities as defined by the North Carolina State Legislature. Stacy is looking forward to answering your questions, and thanks Save Davidson for holding this forum. Next up is Shana Erber. Shana has lived in Davidson for over 6 years. She is a concerned citizen, mother, and prior businesswoman. She graduated with a BA in English from Boston College and was an active marketing professional for 20 plus years. Shana has relevant professional experience in strategic planning, budgeting, and communications. She has 2 children, ages 11 and 13, attending Bailey Middle, and has been married for 18 years. Shana lives in the McConnell neighborhood, where she served as a community web manager as community web manager for 3 years. Shana was raised in the suburb of Detroit and has lived in various cities such as the Boston suburbs, Marin County, California, and Evanston, Illinois, before moving to Davidson in 2011. These combined experiences have fed her quest for a town with a fantastic quality of life like Davidson and her urge to protect and foster it. Ryan Fay, the last table 2. Originally from the San Francisco Bay Area, Ryan Fay has lived in the Lake Norman area for the past 13 years. He instantly fell in love with Davidson upon his arrival into the area, and 2 years later he was lucky enough to become a Davidson resident, residing on South Kimberly Road with his wife Jamie and their 2 children, Levi and Finley. Ryan is a 1997 graduate of Duke University and currently works as the Director of Business Operations for the Scott Clark Auto Group. Ryan believes that Davidson is a special place to live and wants to help preserve its small town feel. He also wants to work diligently to improve infrastructure and help reunite the town. He believes firmly that town government must be transparent and answer to the citizens. So thank you. Okay, so I drew the second question as we were waiting for the first question to be answered. So the second question for table 2 is, if the Luminous contract for the Beatty Street development does not go through, what would you envision for these 19 acres of town-owned property?
So thank you all for the interest and the opportunity to be here this evening. I think with respect to Luminous and assuming that it doesn't go through, I think Luminous represents a number of important issues that are in front of us and choices about the way in which we govern and the direction in which Davidson is going. And one of the most important ones is engagement in the public participation process. Engaging the public in the direction of our town and where we're headed and what we're going. And that was something that was certainly missed in the Luminous project. And that's something that we would drive as we go forward and additional considerations are made with respect to that piece of property. So I think that would be first and foremost in that process.
So first of all, there's been a lot of flaws in the process around Beatty Street, and we probably should go back and start over. But if it doesn't go through, I think part of the vision, what happens to that land, happens with the bond package. If we get bond money to do more parks, we can do more parks. But right now, we don't have a lot of money to do more parks or a lot of anything. So we really want the citizens to help us make that decision. So vote for park bonds if you want more parks, vote for park greenways if you want more greenways, et cetera, transportation improvements. So this is your opportunity to give us a lot of feedback.
So I think that I agree with what was said. I think the process definitely should have involved more public input up front. I also, I think that town-owned land in this climate that we're in right now, where land is shrinking and decreasing, is so valuable. So having town-owned land and just having that opportunity to make parks, active park space, recreation facilities and things of that nature is so important. So even if the money is not here right now in the budget, A lot of people appreciate that land as a beautiful nature area for our kids to explore, and maybe some of it does have to go on hold until the budget is available, but I believe strongly that the tree canopy in the park are a necessity there, and then possibly we could come up with some really great creative community ideas to share that space.
Yeah, I think nothing could be better than having us go back and look at this project again. As everybody has said, the process was flawed. And I really go back to, this is kind of the impetus for when I started to think about this run, because I remember being at the town meeting and a couple of young ladies got up there and had some really amazing drawings and some ideas about what they thought this park could be. And that's one of the important things, is getting citizen feedback and understanding. And we have so many intelligent people in this community that really can contribute to not just the 5 people that we elect as commissioners, but to the whole community as well. I do believe that Beatty Street, at least a good portion of it, a large portion of it, should be a park. I've heard things like an art district, some really cool ideas that could happen in that area to just enhance the culture, the diversity, and things that will bring people to Davidson to see it in the future.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I had any questions. Caught me off guard there. Okay, so thank you to everyone at Table 2. Table 3 is our final table. I promise after I read these introductions I will talk way less for the rest of the time. The first person on the left of Table 3 is Sam Weaver. Sam represents integrity, energy, hard work, and leadership. Sam is proud to be the youngest candidate running for town commission in Davidson at the ripe old age of 31. Sam is a North Carolina native, a United States Army combat veteran, a family man with a devotion to his beautiful wife, Stephanie, and 3 children, Jack, Charlie, and Henry. Sam enjoys the people, small town feel, culture, and many outdoor activities available in Davidson. Sam is a graduate of the Pennsylvania State University and a senior operational risk associate for a Fortune 100 not-for-profit financial services organization. Sam wants to move forward by preserving the unique qualities that we have in Davidson. He will be focusing attention towards the preferences of the people who live in Davidson. Sam is recommended by 4 out of 5 people that recommend things. Autumn, I'm sorry you have to follow that one. Next up is Autumn Michael. She's a native of nearby Salisbury and a Davidson resident for almost 12 years. She is currently the director of the Davidson Lands Conservancy, a local private nonprofit land conservation organization. Autumn is an attorney by trade and is an adjunct professor at both UNC Greensboro and University of Pennsylvania, teaching on issues related to historic preservation and local land use law. Autumn has 4 kids in the CMS public schools, 3 at Davidson Elementary and 1 down at J.M. Alexander, our current IB magnet school. She has been involved in civic life in Davidson since they moved here, and like many of you is concerned about the loss of the small town character and our quality of life. If elected, Autumn would focus on maintaining our historic small college town character and prioritizing those amenities that contribute to our quality of life: neighborhood parks and greenways, diversity of housing types, and partnerships with area nonprofits and institutions to leverage town resources. Third up is Jim Fuller. Jim believes in the adage, what you do speaks more loudly than what you say. So he gives back through public service, having served as president of the Davidson Lands Conservancy, on the Davidson Planning Board, and on the boards of the Ada Jenkins Center and the Davidson Community Players. Jim has taught 3 times as an adjunct professor at his alma mater, Davidson College, also teaching full courses at UNC, Duke, and Wake Forest Law Schools. He's listed in Best Lawyers in America 2017-18 and is rated preeminent in legal skills and professional ethics by peer review. Having been trained as a mediator and having served as an appellate judge, Jim doesn't just complain about problems, but rolls up his sleeves to work with others to solve problems. Jim's campaign commitment is a straightforward pledge to work with everyone in this community to make Davidson the best small town in our region and state. That's a concomitant commitment, best and small, since Jim believes fervently in our town's core value number 5. He is a fiscal conservative with taxpayer dollars and values candor in personal and town communications. Jim believes that one of the primary roles of an elected leader is to listen thoughtfully and to give great weight to the views of all the people in our town. Finally, Michael Angel on the far end. Michael is retired from the U.S. Army after 20 years of military service. His family and he settled in Davidson in 2004 prior to his first deployment in Iraq. The plan was for his wife and children to come join him at Fort Bragg after he came back, but his wife fell in love with the town and they decided that she would stay until he retired. There were so many people that reached out to his family while he was gone that challenged him to find a way to serve the Davidson community. He decided 2 years ago to focus this service as the town commissioner, and his promise to the town is 4 things: represent the will of the people, stop the current. The third question to our third table is I running well? So many of the current development projects in the works in Davidson involve a land development company with whom a current town commissioner has direct business ties. Please share your philosophy regarding conflicts of interest, both real and perceived, and how these should be handled as it relates to town board decisions.
Thanks, Andrew.
Sure.
So regarding conflict of interest, right? So if an individual who is in an elected official position and has a direct financial impact or financial gain through, development throughout Davidson, that person has conflict of interest, right? If you are, you're doing the land documentations for town, and you vote on these things, you shouldn't be able to have that ability to it, and you should excuse yourself from having any type of financial gain through that. So, thank you.
Thanks you all for the opportunity to be here and respond to these questions, and thank you, Andrew. In terms of conflict of interest, from a legal perspective, it's fairly easy if there's a direct financial pecuniary interest gained, then one has to announce what that potential conflict of interest is and allow themselves to be recused from the discussion. So certainly that would be a priority for that direct financial conflict. But then there's also the issue of the appearance of impropriety that takes it a step further, that I think would be important for one to say, if there's a conflict in this particular situation, this is how I've been involved, et cetera, to try to alleviate that issue of appearance of impropriety, even without a direct conflict. But I do think various commissioners come to an issue with a value set, be it related to conservation or be it related to something else, but the direct conflict is fairly easy.
I agree that it is, in most respects, a simple question. If you have a conflict, get out. If you have even the appearance of a conflict or a question that you're thinking about, make a full disclosure. Let everybody in the room know by giving transparent, complete answers, and by making sure that when we vote, all of us do so based solely on the criterion of what is in the best interest of everybody who lives in the town of Davidson.
Thanks. Yeah, exactly what Jim said. I mean, if there's even a perceived conflict of interest, because perception is reality, it doesn't matter what's true, it matters what's perceived. So if an individual is and does not step up and say, this is my involvement, this is my part of the project, this is what I'm involved with in this project, and they don't step down, step back, then that's where I think the conflict truly arises. So to answer the question basically is that we, as the other members of the town board, would have to approach an individual and have them explain to us what their interest is and how they're involved with it, and then decide what steps we need to take to make sure that they weren't involved in the voting process.
Okay, thanks everyone. I'm going to come back to table 1 here because you all have been sitting patiently and waiting for me to ask them a question. The next question is, what would you say to someone living in West Davidson who may feel like their voice is not very well represented in the discussion of development concerns that directly affect their neighborhoods?
Well, I would say that growth is happening in Davidson. There's no question about that. I think there is an inevitability towards growth. And with growth comes opportunities, and there are also obviously challenges. We're in a market that is enjoying increasing property values. That's good for a lot of people, challenging for others. I think we have to provide assistance to whomever wants it. I know a lot of people on the west side are approached by perhaps developers to purchase property. And I think the idea has been suggested that the town can provide some kind of resources to help people navigate that. And I think that's something that we should do. As somebody who lives relatively close to a commercial district, what I see happening on the west side is within, and it can be good or bad, but within a half mile of this church, compared to 10 years ago, there's 1,000 new jobs. There's opportunities to walk to do your shopping and things like that. And I think while that presents some challenges, the ability to walk or drive a very short distance to get to a job, do shopping, is very beneficial.
This is a test.
Okay, so one of the things that I think has always been a challenge in Davidson has been the connection, or in fact the disconnection historically, between the African American community that helped settle and really bring Davidson into its current existence, and those people like me, whether you look like me or you've moved here like me or something like that. And obviously have challenges that we have to address in that. I think part of getting to that is to have a little bit more interaction. Maybe it's with the town board, with other boards, not just the housing coalition making them lead the way, but everybody be involved in things. And even if it's to the extent of having meetings in the west side or having meetings here more often, that sort of thing. We could do a lot more to learn and listen from one another.
Just see the green light's gone off on this one, so we're just going to set it aside. So I agree that there has to be more engagement across the board. And one of the things that I think is important is to engage with all the citizens of Davidson. And I also realize that the west side of Davidson has changed over the years. And so I don't want to look and exclusively say that I'm looking at one racially divided portion of Davidson or economically divided portion of Davidson, but rather to say that our town commissioners and basically our town government has to be responsive to all the citizens of Davidson. And to that end, I would expand on what has already been said by saying that we need to do more listening. And I don't think that having one or two set times a week that are during anybody else's workday is the way to have adequate listening sessions. So I will do my best to use my ability as an otherwise retired person to listen and be available when you need to talk to me or email me or call me from the west side, from the other side, from any citizen of the town of Davidson.
I don't think we've done a very good job making sure that we've taken care of the people on the west side of town. I look at Woody's and I look at other developments that have happened there, and what's happened is just something that could have been avoided and should have been avoided. I also think that we need to do a better job as a town making sure we're bringing everybody together from Summers Walk all the way in. I hear too many times about people, it's a community of neighborhoods versus just one town. We're only 5.1 square miles, and we need to make sure that we can come together as a town and be one united town. So when there's an issue with Beatty Street, we have people from River Run and Summers Walk coming to step up and support our neighbors. It's not just a not my backyard issue, it's a town issue, and so we all need to be cognizant of that and listen and understand the needs of everybody from the east side all the way to the west side and make sure we're together as a town united.
Thanks very much. The next question for table 2. The current board recently agreed to further pursue a redesigned town hall at a cost of around $13 million. And there's going to be a ballot vote in November, about $15 million in general obligation bonds. All while the town is continuing to subsidize $1 million a year as part of the debt service for MI Connection. So how would you as a commissioner balance the need implied by some of those general obligation bonds for parks and things that towns need with a similar need to be fiscally responsible to the taxpaying citizens of Davidson?
So I think with respect to the new town hall, there's been a lot of discussion, and of course the initial price started out at around $22 million and has slowly been worked down. I think the real question with respect to the town hall is the question of priority, and where on the list of priorities that this town faces is that particular priority. And I would suggest that it's not at the top. So I think that's a real question. Now, having said that, one of the real considerations and one of the questions that has been presented in this is the need for additional fire and police space. And I don't think anybody would ever argue that fire and police both come first in needing the space that they need in order to serve properly. So I think if that was the primary driver in the discussion of a new town hall or a new facility, I think you would find unanimous support. I think when we talk about expansion of some of the ancillary spaces related to it, I think it falls further down the list.
So first of all, I think the town hall is about public safety. Our police department is a woefully underserved amount of space. I was the one commissioner who a year ago asked that our new fire station number 2 be expanded to put police services there. I do not think we need to continue to have police and fire right in the center of downtown. I'm a proponent of moving it out somewhere else. Didn't get a lot of support for that. The fire station is being built as it's being built. I also voted no for the original proposal on the town hall to even hire the contractor. I think we need new police and fire space, and town hall may not be the right spot, but we really need that right now, and if that's the only way we can get it done, then we need to do it.
When I was growing up, my dad taught me a good financial lesson that served me well, which is don't spend beyond your means. So, and that really has to do with the situation sometimes we're in as a town is if we have strains on our finances, like my connection, where we've got $1 million, 10% of our budget coming out to that, plus a growing debt to Mooresville, and we have other financial strains that I agree that prioritizing is key, and simplifying and being very financially responsible comes into play. So for me, it's obviously I'm in support of police and fire. We need that for basic safety. But when you look at the town hall facilities, it's sort of trimming the fat on that. What do we really need? What kind of creative options can we come up with? And making sure we aren't spending beyond our means in this critical time.
So this is really the situation that MI Connection has put us in. When you're spending 9.2% of your budget, basically just putting money toward a property that's not really working, you're faced with making a lot of difficult decisions that you probably wouldn't have to if we weren't in this situation. That needs to be addressed immediately. But I do think that with regard to a new town hall, I am not a proponent of that right now. I think that there are some creative alternatives out there that could be explored. I wouldn't be opposed to renovating that facility for use by our fire and police, and then finding some alternative means for the other folks at Town Hall. I mean, right now, if I drive by Davidson Elementary, I'm seeing cottages where children are learning, and that's not ideal, but it's a situation that they've been put in by finance, and if we had to explore the same situation, I wouldn't be opposed to looking at something like that, or some other buildings around town that may have availability as well.
Thanks. This is our last question, or sort of formal question. We're going to follow this question up with a short yes or no answer lightning round, and then we'll have everybody get a chance to answer or give their final closing statements. So for the final table over there, in the 2015 Davidson election, a major issue that people were discussing, candidates and citizens alike, was managed growth. And today there are 15 projects in the town of Davidson that are either recently approved or being considered, totaling 1,952 residential units, 472,000 square feet of commercial space, and 215 hotel rooms. So first is a question in two parts. First, how would you define the term managed growth? And second, does the current state of development and growth in Davidson fit with that definition?
Okay, so for the first part, what's the definition of managed growth, right? So everybody talks about the small town feel, right? About Davidson. This is what has drove everybody to this town. Is they want to keep Davidson a small town, right? And it comes back to, what does small town mean? Is it multifamily homes, apartments? When I think about small town, I don't think about apartments. I don't think about the development at Pot Street with 276 apartments, 19 townhomes. I don't view that as small town. Now, the reason why we got in that situation is because you look at our comprehensive plan from 2010, which allows multifamily homes to be built on that property. So when you think about managing growth, one of the things you need to look at, how I would try to deal with it, is update our planning ordinances, update our comprehensive plans, and lower the density. That's managing the growth.
The first question is, how would you define managed growth? And that, to me, is growth driven by the town, driven by the community need and community desire, rather than driven by the developer and whatever is the highest and best use of any particular property. So that would be my first response. Also, managing growth is growth that can handle the given infrastructure that we have, be it through roads or other transportation means, or through our schools and overcrowding situations and growth situations there. So managed growth is taking all of that into account. The second part, are we currently managing growth, sort of speaks for itself. Probably there are 13 of us up here. That I would say a direct, I'm a lawyer like Jim, we probably can't answer anything in 1 minute, but a direct answer to that is no, we are not currently doing that. We need to look at density caps and by right development in our current infrastructure.
Well, almost every action has a reaction. I think it's terribly important that we look at what is wonderful about our town, and there's a lot, and what needs to change about our town. I tried to do what I said. I voted against Woody's, I voted against Beatty Street, I voted against the new town hall. But I vote for things too, and this also gets into the growth and budget, because I voted for affordable housing, I voted for veterans housing, I voted for Fire Station number 2, and I vote for public services that really serve not just the people in my neighborhood, but people all over the town of Davidson. And I believe that's what we need to do. We need to move forward together.
So I'll take the first part of the question. So managed growth, what does it mean? And I'll piggyback off Autumn a little bit. I mean, it boils down to, what does the town need? What do you need? And then what does the people and the citizens need? I also agree that right now, with the current growth rate, we are going much faster through infrastructure. There isn't the infrastructure to support the new growth that's going on. And as well as when you boil it right down to managed growth, also say what Jim says, what do we need to look at in order to make sure that the town continues to grow, but at the same time, we keep a control of what goes in. There's a big difference between 279 apartments and single-family housing. And I've heard that said that it's all about choices. Well, you should have choices. Well, that's good, but we, the board, the town, need to look at, what do we call that coming in? In other words, do we want single-family homes, or do we want apartments? And this is why it's very important to have the community involved. So we, as on the board, vote the will of the people and give you what you need.
Okay, thanks very much for everybody's thoughtful answers. We're going to require you to answer some questions with a little less thought now. I'm going to start you off with an easy one. I'm going to go down the line, starting with Rodney here, and we'll just go down the line, and maybe we'll come back the other way. Okay? So you get 2 in a row. Yeah. All right, here's the first one. Ready? Is a hot dog a sandwich, yes or no?
We all answer the same question?
Yes, everyone has to answer. These are the hard-hitting ones, so get ready.
Yes. Hot dog is a sandwich.
Just say, oh yeah.
Lightning round. We're not good on lightning.
I'll have to change my answer.
No.
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 Yes. No.
Nope.
No.
It depends.
It's a show-off who's not funny. That's what I told you.
No. All right, we are going to require all the outliers in the group to defend themselves in the closing statement.
So it goes between two pieces of bread.
All right. Have you ever run a red light?
I refuse to answer that question. Yes, more than once.
You should invoke your neighbor's help.
As a lawyer who's argued constitutional cases,
But I have stopped jaywalking.
So, here, Jim, here's $1. You're my lawyer now. Yes, I have.
Never on purpose, but I have.
I was going to use that one. Always accidentally, but yes. Only when running late.
Last week, I was on a St. Davidson call, and I always use the "I'm not from around here. Look over there."
The yellow light was too short.
I don't think I've run a red light in Davidson, but I've run a couple of red lights on my bike in Davidson.
I would just say if you've ever sat at that light by CVS on South Street at 3 in the morning and waited for it to cycle through 3 or 4 times, you have run a red light.
You get the next one. We're going around again.
No.
Do you read an actual newspaper? Like the actual physical newspaper?
If the Charlotte Observer is an actual newspaper, yes.
Not anymore, all online.
All online.
Am I at that?
Occasionally.
Every day, too. Not in print.
Only the local ones that are delivered in my driveway, and I don't know what else to do with them.
I don't read the Lake Norman Citizen, so no.
2 and the actual paper. I know.
we subscribe to the Observer and read and go online for a lot of other things.
Just online.
Okay. One more time down the line here. Let's see. Have you ever sang karaoke?
More than once.
You won't have to demonstrate.
No, I don't have to demonstrate. Okay, in that case, yes, I have.
Frequently.
With bourbon.
Living on a prayer.
Only once, and it will never happen again.
Enthusiastically and recently.
Only in the car by myself.
Only at Saeed's. I do not very well.
I don't think there's any video.
I'll actually have a serious answer. I always wanted to, but never have.
So George and I are going to go to site with data. The last time I sang karaoke was my 40th birthday in a pub on the Isle of Wight, and I sang the one song I know how to sing, which is Disco Inferno.
So I feel like we know all of each other, all of you all much better now. Yeah. So I wanted to give everybody an opportunity now to sort of make your closing statements. We have plenty of time, so I think 2 minutes a person is plenty of time to make your statements. If you want to use some of that time to respond to some of the questions that were asked at the other tables, definitely feel free to do so. Otherwise, I think we can probably just sort of work our way down the line if that's okay with everyone.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Rodney, you want to get started?
Yes, again, thank you all for being here this evening, and anybody who is watching online or however else you might watch this, thank you for your interest. I will take a quick minute just to respond to a couple things. There was a discussion about 5-0 votes, and I haven't really tracked that. I feel like we have fewer, than maybe we did 7-10 years ago. I know Jim referenced the Woody's vote. Jim and I both voted against that. That was a 3-2 vote. 3 in favor, Jim and I against. I think one of the more important votes that we have taken since I've been on the board was back in 2012. We voted, this is we're coming out of the recession, and we were actually trying, believe it or not, to encourage development and growth at that time. And we took a vote to streamline the development review process and to take the town board out of the approval for most developments. And that was a 4-1 vote. And I was the one person who voted against that. And I would vote against that again today. Doesn't matter if the economy is bad or good. I think the development review process needs to be thorough, and it needs to be challenging and difficult and not easy. So I voted against that. One other comment was made, single family or apartments, do we want them? Yeah, we want both. It just kind of depends on where they go. There's a right place for each. It can't all be apartments. It can't all be single family homes. So, in closing, I would say, people always ask, well, why do you do this? Why are you running? I think the kind of the obligatory answer that you get is because I want to serve the town. And I want to serve the town. And I've lived here since 2005. This is not something that you do. I've worked it out. I think you make about minimum wage doing this job. So it's not something that you do for money. It's not something that you do for glory. You don't walk to a restaurant, you don't say, oh, Commissioner, come to the head of the line and, start playing hell to the chief or something like that. You just do it. No, they don't. You just do it because you want to serve the town. And I think as you try to narrow down 13 people to the 5 that you'll pull the lever for, push the button for, I should say, you need to look at people and say, do they have a history of serving this town? And a bit of my history, since moving here in 2005, in 2007, a lot of people say I voted against my connection. So I did not vote for my connection. I wasn't on the board. But in 2007, I was very involved with kind of leading the charge together with Bobby Cashin and others against my connection. I've been on the Davidson Lands Conservancy Board for many years. I was a president for a couple, participated in the comprehensive plan. Have been on the town board since 2011, started a group here in town called Trees Davidson. So I have a history of service. I have shown up at the ballot box to cast a vote every time I've had an opportunity. I think we've done a lot of great things these past 6 years, and I appreciate your consideration for one of your 5 votes, and we'll try to work together with our staff and our citizens to keep moving Davidson forward. Thank you.
So, one of the things that I see when I look out in this audience is a number of young people, and the way that I look at service to the town of Davidson, just like service to any other organization, is it really is about them. It's not about us, especially those of us who are getting a little bit on in years and won't be around all that long to see some of the things that are happening. He's like 6 months older than me. So really, I'd kind of like to get back to the issue of managed growth and how we address that. And I'm really kind of surprised you brought it up, Rodney, because I was going to actually bring up the development process and the issue of the town board having streamlined, quote unquote, the development review process at the end of the recession. Honestly, I think that was one of the worst things that the town of Davidson could have done, and really I think it's led us where we are now in the process of land developments that are going too fast. There's not as much transparency as we need it, and really we don't have, or the citizens don't have the ability to do the type of job that they really do need to do as part of the process. So I personally would like us to bring back the charrette process where any and all citizens have the opportunity to respond to a project, particularly the major ones, prior to the planning board even having an opportunity to take a look at anything, and then really get into it so that projects, whether they're good or bad, are made better, and potentially projects that are not going to benefit the town, its citizens, and its future don't end up seeing the light of day. So that's one of the things that I really do believe in, and honestly, I would like to ask for your vote, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for being here. I'll use this time to address some of the questions addressed to my counterparts. First, clearly, on the Luminous project, I would have recommended a full stop. For those of you who heard my comments at the town board that night, I thought the process was flawed. I think there is a need for preservation, especially on public land, and I think the people in this town should be a driving force in how decisions are made. I'd also want to talk to the issue of frugality and a number of other things that are brought up in terms of the general obligation bonds, the new proposed town hall. When you add it all up, that one town hall meeting about a month ago, I called it the $30 million meeting. Folks, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a town, as we've already said, that has more than 9%, almost 10% of its annual budget going to something that we all believe that we need to look at. How do we either get out of it, or how do we restructure our current position with My Connection? But I can't in good conscience right now tell you that I would recommend that our town do what could potentially put us an additional $30 million in debt. It just does not seem right. I can't go there in order to support it. And like several other folks have said, there are other ways that we need to look at, because I am an absolute supporter of our police and our firefighters, our first responders. It's critical, but we can't make million-dollar decisions to do this. And for me, I look at this as the opportunity to continue to serve as a public servant. I spent my career in the military as a public servant. I have come back and been involved in a number of nonprofit activities, and it would be my honor to serve as a member of the town commission. I ask you to do your research between now and November 7th, and if I'm the person that you would want to vote for, I respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And I thank you for St. Davidson for having us here, and thank you for everybody that's showing up here to listen and learn about all of this. You have a tall task ahead of you. We've got 13 commissioner candidates and 3 mayoral candidates, and it's a lot, especially for a non-major election. I think most of us here tonight would agree that we all moved to Davidson because of its small town charm. And today, I believe Davidson truly is a unique and special place to live. But our current growth trajectory is putting that at risk. And I think that we need to come up with a more balanced growth plan, and we need to make sure that the projects we're approving are the right projects for the town. I also think we need to improve the citizens' trust in the town government. Our national citizen survey showed a double-digit decline in the town's overall direction, confidence in the town government, and acting in the best interest of Davidson. And that's concerning. While it's still the majority are saying that they feel good about it, we've lost almost 20% in each one of those categories. And that's trouble. We need to build a bridge of trust back between the town government and the citizens of this town. And finally, MI Connection. I know everybody up here is against it. It's pretty hard to get up here and say, hey, I'm for MI Connection. I think that would be really interesting. We've touched on a lot about the $1 million that we're spending annually, and the toll it has taken on our police, our fire department, and our other town and government services has been substantial. And I think what sets me apart from all the other candidates is that my business background in actually selling companies that are better suited to be in the hands of other businesses. And I think that MI Connection is better suited in the hands of another company. And I believe that I am the right candidate for the job. So thank you.
So again, thank everybody for their participation this evening. I think there's two choices that are really in front of us in this election, and for Davidson as a whole. I think as a town, we're at an inflection point. Certainly not the first one, and probably not the last one, but a significant one. And I think the choice that we're faced with is the one that we are currently pursuing, which is a strategy and a vision that we will build a better Davidson. It's a strategy of development of the things that we supposedly want and desire. So whether it's roads, the way that we get roads by current strategy is through development. The way we get sidewalks is the same way. The way that we get open space is that we develop it. And that's been the current approach for some time now. So I think that's the first option. The second, or the alternate option here, is one that emphasizes preservation over development as an approach. And so the question before us is, are we ready to preserve the historic character of Davidson? Are we ready to preserve our open space? Do we emphasize preserving our diverse communities? Do we emphasize preserving our smallness? And so I think those are the questions that are before us and are emblematic in this particular election. And I think that's the choice that we all face. I think the good news is that that we have a large crop of new candidates who are up here out of a sense of obligation, and it was alluded to earlier, a particular path that they believe in. And so I think that's the good news, and I think all of these candidates are here out of a willingness to serve as opposed to a desire to serve.
So we've talked about a lot tonight. So the first thing I'm going to say is it's not easy to be a commissioner. Rodney said it was minimum wage. It's like 33 cents per citizen per year. So it's basically free labor. We talked about apartments and single-family houses. We're getting way, way too expensive to have affordable housing. Apartments are affordable. So if you want to have a variety of housing and a variety of people, you need to have both, to what Rodney said. We've talked about MI Connection. We've been trying for a year to sell it with Mooresville, to no progress. It's such a crappy deal the way it was written. It's really hard to get out of. We also need balance on our town board, and I'm talking about geographical balance. Right now, I'm the only commissioner that lives more than a mile from town hall. We have a lot of citizens that live on the east side of town. So it's not only the west side, it's the east side, it's everybody. We have multiple core values. People keep coming back to number 5, but I believe there's 9 other ones. So we need to look at all the core values and make sure we hit the balance. And it's about all the people, just not people in certain neighborhoods. So I appreciate your time tonight, and thank you for coming out, and I'd appreciate your vote in November.
So my impression as of late in Davidson is that there's a lot of kind of separation and debating sides of issues and sort of a darkness over the whole concept of town government. And what I would want us to get back to is a lightness in town government where you have people who are working together, a unified front, unifying west side, east side, everybody who lives here, and listening and having approachability and being able to say, okay, we're coming together as a town to create something unique, progressive, innovative, and preserving what we already have that we love. So I would be hoping just to change the attitude in town towards town hall and have there be a little bit more trust and approachability, and to be able to really take in what people say. So there's been a lot of discussion about listening, and I'm sure that there's listening. I'm sure everybody sits quietly and listens to what everybody says, but are you taking it in, and do you have the ability to potentially be brave enough and strong enough to let somebody possibly sway your mind or your agenda into a different direction? And that's really important. So I think what I bring to the table is having that moderate approach where I listen to both sides of an issue and I really make a fair judgment call, but I also am the first person to say that I might not know everything, and there are other really smart, intelligent people in this town that might bring something to my attention, and I'm willing to listen to that and hear that.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank all the volunteers from Save Davidson. I know this has been a long stretch for you over the past week, and I appreciate you guys putting this together and giving us this opportunity. I mean, this is what democracy is all about. Let's be honest, I mean, Davidson's at a crossroads right now, and this election is going to dictate a lot of what happens to our future. I, for one, think Davidson has a really, really bright future. I have aspired to live in Davidson for a long time, and I was finally able to do that, and I know that other people out there feel the same way. And sometimes we need to take a step back and realize just what a special place it is. But we also need to work hard to keep it that special place. I mean, really, the only reason that I'm doing this, the reason that I jumped in, is because I want to keep Davidson that small town and that character that I'm hoping my children will raise my grandchildren here. And that's really what I'm looking for. You know, as we've kind of gone along the tables today, I think that for the most part, as you talk to candidates or as you get a chance to talk to them over the next coming month, you'll find that, you know, for the most part, most of us feel the same way about a lot of topics. I mean, none of us really are for the Beatty project. If it comes down to I-77 tolls, we sure would like to see another solution to that. We want open space and we want to preserve Davidson's small town character. I mean, let's be honest, probably the most polarizing question we got up here today was whether a hot dog is a sandwich. But what I think we need to really think about are what are the big decisions that are coming down the road, those decisions that we're not aware of right now, those issues and projects that are on the horizon, but none of us in this room know what's happening. And I think we need to think about who can we put our faith and our trust in to answer those difficult and make those difficult decisions. Like Shana said, I won't profess to have the answers to every single one of the things that ail us. I will say that I promise to do exhaustive and thorough research. I promise to get insight from the citizens. And then I promise to make decisions that are in the best interest of Davidson for the long future. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to come out and listen to us today. And make sure you get your friends and neighbors to come out and vote because it's a very important day on November 7th.
So I actually had a closing statement. It was actually a minute, but you know, so I'm going to adjust. So you know, I took, you know, getting my kids back tonight and just reading this closing statement about you know, everything that's transpired in Davidson. You know, when we think about 80, Potts, Rural Area Plan, West Branch, the Greenway. We think about the East Commons Hotel. We think about public safety. We think about our fiscal budget. We look at my connection. We look at you know, the overdevelopment, the spending, the issues. You know, these are all symptoms, right? These are symptoms to a greater issue here in Davidson, and that's governance, right? The governing body who makes decisions, who you know, guides this town, right? The board is responsible for guiding the town staff to execute based on their guidance, right? The core values. And we haven't been doing a great job about it. Now you can see we have 13 candidates here, well 12, and you know it's been difficult, right? To see a lot of things that have transpired. You know, when you think about a hotel next to an elementary school, I don't know how far it needs to go to put common sense into it and say, hey, we don't need an elementary school next to, or a hotel next to an elementary school, right? Or hey, we have this Beatty open space of 19 acres of open space, which Mecklenburg County Parks and Recs has said they will do the planning, the development, and the maintenance of the property. It costs Davidson zero, nothing. But now we're gonna vote $15 million on different general obligation bonds for parks, greenways, and mobility. I mean, you look at our budget, right? Our physical budget, we're getting into additional debt for the company, and potentially it would go 28% of your property tax, pay more out of pocket. So, so these are just issues or symptoms to a greater issue.
Thanks so much. I made the decision to run for town board in part because I wanted my value system and the things that I care about to be part of the conversation. One of those is historic preservation. Talking about looking at our assets, looking at what makes Davidson unique as this small historic college town. And so that's just one of the issues that I'd like to bring that really hasn't had a voice, hasn't been one that we've talked about as a town tremendously. But part of that historic small college town too is the small piece. And I think that is when we need to look at our ordinances and look at the by right development, to not cede our rights away as a town in terms of what we want to ask a developer to come in and do. I think we need to look in terms of quality of life at our traffic solutions, at pedestrian safety. But I think we also are there's more to us as a town than planning and the planning department in terms of our connection to culture and arts and our greenways, our relationships together as people, our Friday nights at Summit where the kids are running around. There's so much more to us as a town that I don't want to lose sight of, even though I would like to really dig into that ordinance and the rural area plan, among other things. But thanks for having us here tonight. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks to everybody for coming and participating. Special thanks to my bride, Jean. I'm running for my children and my grandchildren. I think we can have the very best small town, and I emphasize small, not only in the region, but in the state and in the nation. We have to commit, and I don't mind reinforcing and saying again that to me, this is a crossroads, and the key issue is core value 5. Do we want to be a small town? And will we do the things that are necessary? Will we look at zoning after we've spent thousands of hours and there are requests for waivers and changes? The answer ought to be a presumptive no, unless there is a compelling reason and it benefits everybody in the town. My partner, Sandy Carnegie, among others, Sandy has suggested that we expand the Davidson Historical District so that it's harder to tear down what we built and easier to build something that fits in with our town. And I'm going to make a concrete proposal about Beatty Street. I suggest that we put it on mothballs for a year, that we immediately appoint a citizen task force who will look at those 19.9 acres and decide the best use to benefit all of our town. And that might later include Luminous, it might include Blue Water, it might include keeping the whole thing as a park. But part of what we talk about is credibility and trust. I'm going to do something unusual. We made a mistake, and I admit I was part of it, by voting to move forward without having a public hearing on what to do with that land. But we can cure the mistake, and that's what I'm proposing we do tonight.
First, thanks so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. I know when I ran 2 years ago, we had one forum. It was me and the other 5 candidates, and we were in the lobby of the Village Inn, and there were 3 people there. And let me tell you, you want to talk about tough questions. The hot dog one did not come up, but this is great. You know, I spent, just like Jane, you know, I spent 20 years of my life defending democracy, and I love seeing this. I absolutely love it. I love seeing everybody out here. I love hearing the questions. So thanks so much for coming out. I just want to point out one thing that was brought up both by Rodney and Stacy. You know, they talk about apartments are more affordable, but last time I checked, the apartments at Linden are $1,800 a month. So I don't know how that's affordable for a lot of people, but okay, my mortgage is less than that. So that's fine. You don't have to think it's a true statement. You could call them and ask. I did. But this is really an important time. We need to look at how we're going to shape Davidson. What is it going to look like? What is it going to look like now? What is it going to look like 20 years from now? You know, my son every day, you know, he keeps saying he's going to go somewhere else for college, but he keeps talking about coming back to Davidson and living here. And his point is he's like, well, it'll be great. I'm going to go do something, and then I'll come back to Davidson. So I need to find a job that allows me to live in Davidson and commute to Charlotte. And I'm like, okay, that's great. So to me, that's what's driving me. Why do I want to serve? It's just to make sure that when my children, if they do decide to come back to Davidson, have something to come back to that's how they remember it now. To include the fun Friday nights out behind Summit, to include the green, and to do all the things that are here. And at the end, I think what we need to look at, we being our citizens, because I get to vote too, is we need to look at what's the cost of moving forward and what are we willing to do to move forward and create Davidson. Do I have 15 seconds? Okay, you show me the other side. I'm like, wait a minute. And finally, I agree with what Jim says. Jim has some excellent points, and he absolutely has the right approach here for the Beatty Street project, but the problem is that's one vote, and you need 3. So, thank you so much again for coming out.
Stephanie's going to come up and sort of take us out the door here. I just wanted to very quickly, before I get off the stage, say thanks to all the candidates for their willingness to indulge what could have been a very unwieldy process, but what I think worked out to be fairly effective. And thanks to all of you for being here and for the concern that you show for our town. So thanks very much. And
thank you, Andrew, and thank you to the candidates. I do have one more yes or no question for you all. And I also want to mention at the end of this, we did allot some time, so if any citizens that did not get a question answered by a candidate, we've got a mingle plan, so please feel free. I know that they would welcome back and stay here to answer any questions that you do have, or some additional any additional points that you'd like to be made. And also to the candidates at the end of this, we already took a quick picture before we do engage with the audience. But I wanted to, we've had a lot of interesting topics of conversation, a lot about development, and these questions came from topics that have been identified by Save Davidson as interest from our citizens, community, and businesses, topics that the officials will have influence over. And I want to read again the mission statement from Save Davidson before I pose the yes-no question. And I'm going to read it a little more slowly. Our mission is to ensure fairness, ethics, and transparency in official Town of Davidson decision-making through citizen education, empowerment, and participation. This initially began as a Beatty Street initiative in terms of looking what we could do to save that property from the development that has been approved. And then it quickly grew into the Potts development. It grew into the hotel at CSD. And so again, just about the citizen communication and openness and engagement. So the question is going to be, and just a quick yes or no. And I know this is not a debate, it's just a forum, so at some other point in time, further down, then there's a page on the outside, or a paper on the outside that has a list of the forums upcoming as well as election dates. But do you stand behind or with Save Davidson?
I support the mission statement that you just read.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Yes.
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 Yes. 100%.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and everybody else in every neighborhood in this town.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So a quick picture, and then we will have let the audience members engage with the candidates. Thank you very much.